And so I just take a deep breath and I let my body do what it needs to. And I know that my body is then going to be flooded with all of those supportive hormones and all of, those natural painkillers and things that our body provides. And so that's what happens. I'm just down there and I'm having my contractions, and it's just a very powerful sensation of I am opening up so wide to bring in a new child into this world. A little extra wide because he's Frank Breech.
Welcome to the podcast, ladies. Today I am interviewing Ashlee Rowland from Simple Holistic. That's where you can find her on Instagram. Ashlee is a Christ-centered nutritionist, a course creator, a wellness educator, and she's on a mission to help simplify women's health and quiet the noise of the wellness world. You can find her on Instagram at Simple Holistic without the E. She's here today to tell us her incredible story of delivering her Frank Breech baby at home in I think it was a 4-hour birth, you said?
Yeah.
Something crazy fast. So welcome to the show, Ashlee. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
So we've been following each other for a while now, I think. And you guys know I love my Crunchy Mamas. There's a whole Crunchy Mama community on Facebook. And so Ashlee is just one of these women that, I love her stuff. We were just geeking out before I hit record about all things hormones and health and new technology she's telling me about. And so we might get into some of that, but I want to give her a chance to share with you her incredible story. So Ashlee, tell us about, it was your second baby that was Frank Breech. Did you know he was Frank Breech before you went into labor?
No. So we actually had our little boy in Idaho, and it's actually against Idaho state law to have a breech home birth. So we didn't know he was breech, so we didn't break any laws. And I'm almost certain, at my checkup, with my midwife checkup right before he was born, he was not breech. So he must have flipped, and I somehow didn't feel it. Maybe it was funny. My midwife had me go shake the apples at home. And I think when I shook the apples, which a lot of people here will know what that means.
Shake the apple tree, with your
with my butt,
Yeah, like having someone shake your butt muscles. Yeah.
So I told my husband, shake my apple tree or whatever. And I think that when I shook the apple tree, I think he flipped. So
little too much shaking going on.
A little too much shaking. But yes,
Love it.
We had no idea that he was breech, let alone Frank Breech. And so when I, started having contractions, well, I didn't really think they were contractions, 10 days before we were expecting him, I was just like, well, this is weird. And now knowing that he was breech, that's why the contractions felt so strange compared to, my first birth, because there wasn't that even pressure.
What did they feel like? How were they different?
So they weren't your normal, last the right amount of time, the right, growing with intensity, that kind of stuff. That's not what happened at all. It was weird, It's actually funny. We're going to have to find the YouTube video for this somewhere, but we were actually in the process of editing a movement YouTube video for while I was pregnant. And I'm literally contracting in this video because I did not think I was actually in labor. I just thought I was, I don't know, cramping or something. Or just having, I don't know what I thought.
That would be so fun to share with a little commentary. Here I am. Didn't know I was in labor.
Yeah. So I'm hold on. Okay. So they were very short, and then some would be very long, and then some were very intense, and then some were very mild. And so I'm this is absolutely, I'm not in labor, but I never had quote unquote, false labor with my first. So I didn't really know what that meant, but I was certain that that's what this was. And so when I, had been at that point unknowingly laboring for about 2 hours, I told my husband, because he's texting my midwife, he's filling up the birth pool, he's filling it with water. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not even in labor. And
he's like, yes, you are.
Yeah. And, making dinner, and I'm on the ball. And then it gets to the point where you're literally okay, this is pretty intense for false labor. He calls his mom, and she's like, that doesn't sound like false labor. I'm full on, deep moaning, that kind of stuff. And then my midwife, I'm just don't tell her not to come, nothing. And then she comes and she's like, hey, Ashlee, your false labor, I can feel your baby's head. You're out of 10.
You were 10 centimeters?
I was 10 centimeters. already
What? And
in 2 hours.
but she thought she was feeling the head, but it wasn't the
We
head.
thought she was feeling the head, but it was his butt.
Oh my gosh. So you still don't
It was
know.
still in call. It was still in call because both of my kiddos are born like in call. And then like with my first, my midwife actually just like ruptured. She's like, he'll come out faster. And I'm like, cool. I don't know anything about this really. It was my first baby. And then with Wilder, it was the same situation. It was still in call. So she was feeling like that bulging and she was just assuming like, oh, it's his head.
Yes, right. So en call, for those who don't know, means the sac of waters is still intact when the baby's born. So your first, she ruptured that bag of waters before the baby came out to help him come
He was
faster.
basically like out, like he was starting to come out, and then she
Yeah.
ruptured it, and then he came out.
Yeah. And so, usually there's like a bulging bag before the head comes. So it can be hard. I can see how it would be hard to tell, like, this is a butt, not a head.
When I have like a very hefty, thick sac. So they're hard to rupture.
Well, that's awesome. That's a sign of good nutrition, I've heard, like in pregnancy. So you're obviously practicing what you preach here. Those thick, sturdy bags of waters. That's what we want. And I just love en call births. It's just, they're so magical. So I love this. And Frank breech, meaning like his legs are straight up, like
so his
feet at the head.
Yep, feet at the head. Booty came out first. So what I feel, so I'm pushing, whatever. I'm going through contractions, I'm laboring. I always want to have a water baby because I'm a water baby. Like I wasn't born in water, but I'm just like a water mermaid. But my babies just don't want to be born in water. And so I get out of the tub and I actually deliver him. Like I'm kind of leaning over a exercise ball with my leg up. It's called they said maybe like a
runner's pose.
Runner's
a runner's lunge.
Runner's lunge.
Like so you're on hands and knees with one knee up, which is the best position. So I always talk about that position because it opens your pelvis like an extra 30%. Yeah.
So literally I have no idea, but that's just where I am. I'm on this ball and my legs up and I want to push because, when you get those contractions, you kind of want to push, but I don't push because my body is saying, don't push, don't push. And looking back now, he was breech and I didn't tear at all. I didn't tear at all with a Frank breech baby. And so my body pushes and I'm waiting for that relief. I'm thinking that it's coming over his head and it's going to get to his neck. And so then there's going to be that relief. But instead, when my contraction ends, I'm at full expansion, like as wide as a woman's pelvis can be with no contraction. And so I'm like, whew, this is
intense. Yeah, because you're birthing the butt and the torso and the hips all at once. So there's no like relief there. That makes sense.
And
so you feel
in the sack at that point.
Were you feeling the ring of fire that whole time?
I felt the ring of fire the whole time, even without the contractions. So that was very interesting. But again, like just a very strong sensation. I never would describe it as like, I want this to be done. Like, I need drugs. Like, that wasn't it at all. It's just like, oh my gosh, this head must be huge. Like, I have no idea. Like, wow, this is a huge head.
At what point did she realize that this was a Frank breech birth?
Yep. So then, so right before that, I'm pushing and here comes what she thinks is the head, but it's actually the sac. And then it bursts. And then his balls fall out. And she goes, oh my gosh, Ashlee, your baby's breech. And I'm like, cool. Here we are.
Let's keep going. Yeah.
I'm at the foot of my bed. And I remember because of how I was positioned, I was able to see. So I see I see it fall. I see his balls kind of fall out, but I'm kind of confused. And so, what I was seeing was I thought I had red light on in my house. It was like all red light. So I couldn't see any colors. So I saw these big like clots and I'm like, oh my God, is that blood? Like blood clots? It was all his meconium poop.
Yeah. Cause it's being squeezed right out.
So then it just poops everywhere and it's not the blood. And then his little balls are hanging out. And then the next push, it was 2 pushes. The next push, then it gets really easy after that because nothing's bigger than the torso and the hips and, all that together. And then he just kind of, and I caught him. So it's crazy to think like how that happens too, but I'm on the ball. So I reach down and I catch him and I pull him up and we have our baby. And so,
Wow. So
yeah.
like, I'm assuming his legs probably flopped out in there somewhere too.
Yes. Yep. So he comes out and, basically once he comes out of the canal, then his legs, he springs open. Like he's folded in half and he springs open. And so that's kind
Yeah.
of how I catch
And
him.
did
So he doesn't
it
hurt
take like
himself.
another push to get the head out after his whole body was out?
I'm trying to remember, but I feel he's really long. So his feet and his head came out like at the same time, if I'm remembering correctly. And maybe that's not
Wow.
correct at all. And I'll have my midwife like tell me if that's true, but I'm pretty sure it was like one push, torso, next push was he just
The
came
whole,
out. Like,
yeah, he
the
came
whole
out.
thing. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Amazing. And you said that this birth was essentially a pain-free birth. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
Tell us more
absolutely.
about that. What did that feel like?
Yeah, so I remember with my first little boy, he was born, he's 4 now, but I remember the same situation with that. I did experience pain in the labor, but what I realized was my birth pool had no padding underneath it, and I was on a really hard floor. So I thought I was experiencing back labor, and I wasn't. I was just sitting on concrete for a really long time. And so once I got out of the birth pool, had him, I got to, with him, feel that fetal ejection, which I knew nothing about. So I do not come from a natural family. I don't come from, like my mom didn't naturally birth. Well, she had natural births, but they were in the hospital, medicated, things like that. And so I didn't know any, like about this stuff. I didn't know about the fetal ejection that could happen. But I literally, with my oldest, felt my body saying, like, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was like trying to push, and then I'm like, I don't really think I should be pushing. And then I just stopped and I let my body take over, and he just ejected himself out. And so I felt that literal, like, like when you're swimming in a swimming pool and then you kick off the walls. That's like kind of how I
Yeah.
describe it. And
Yeah.
so with my youngest, Wilder, I had those peculiar contractions, and I was like eating in between and in the pool. And then I got out of the pool, and there's actually a really funny picture on my Instagram where my oldest, Hollis, he's literally underneath me as I'm in that runner's position, like looking up. And I remember being like, you are in the splash zone. You should not be there. And so he like gets away. Then there's a picture. He's like drinking his little drink, like right as I'm laboring. He's like on the bed drinking his drink, and I'm laboring behind. But yeah,
I
way that
love it, like having older siblings at home births. There's just something so magical and powerful about that. And
yeah,
especially when you capture moments like that where it's
yeah.
like watching.
He was like rubbing my hair, and he says, "You're doing great, Mom." And I'm like,
Oh.
thank you. And so, yeah, I remember at one point she put the rebozo on me, and she started, and I'm like, no, I like ripped it away. Like, that's not happening. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming, again, it's because of the positioning that he was in, being breech. And so, I feel my body's desire to push, and it's that like raw, open moment of being a mom, or, becoming a mom. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. And so
Yeah.
in those moments, I remember I either get to fight it, which means my body is going to tense up. There's going to be a, contraction, and I want to be really like expansive in this moment. And so I just take a deep breath and I let my body do what it needs to. And I know that my body is then going to be flooded with all of those supportive hormones and all of, those natural painkillers and things that our body provides. And so that's what happens. I'm just down there and I'm having my contractions, and it's just a very powerful sensation of I am opening up so wide to bring in a new child into this world, a little extra wide because he's Frank Breech.
Yeah.
And I will say that when I was at that full expansion, because he was Frank Breech and the contraction was gone. So, like the contraction gives you kind of like that euphoria, and then it goes away. And normally it will go away, at a time when you're not as widely opened.
Yeah. Or the baby's head pulls back a little bit, or
yes.
you get that relief.
The ring of fire, as you said it. I'm glad you said that. So yes, I definitely had that ring of fire, almost that like burning sensation. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I allow myself to open anymore, I'm going to rip in half. Like, that's literally kind of how I felt, because I was out of the contraction, but it still wasn't painful. It was just like, wow, this is like really stretchy. This is really
Yeah.
stretched out. And so I remember just kind of like leaning on my husband and saying, like, I need another contraction to come, because I needed that to help me, and that's when I was saying, that's when I wanted to push to like try to get him out, but I would have
Mm.
torn. I would have definitely torn. And so I
Yeah.
didn't. I waited for the next contraction, which time is elusive in moments like that. So I don't know how long
It
it
probably
was.
felt
But
like an eternity, even if it
yeah,
was a minute.
yeah. But it came, and then he was there. And
Wow.
that was it. And he was very long. He was almost 24 inches long, like really long, baby.
What?
And
24 inches?
and 6 pounds, 5 ounces. So he was little, like a little snake.
Skinny and
And
long.
yeah, and
Wow.
Paulus was 22 inches. So I have like long babies.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. Like I said, we were living in the mold. And so a lot of people aren't going to know about my story. But this pregnancy was 10 out of 10 stress every single day of the pregnancy. There wasn't a single day that I would say I wasn't stressed. My little boy had been attacked by a rooster, like right when I got pregnant. And it was a horrific traumatic event. He almost had to get a prosthetic eye. And then there was
Wow.
follow-ups and all these things. And then we ended up moving into a house that we didn't know, but it was contaminated with biohazardous levels of mold and bacteria and different things like that. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
I had the stress symptoms, but then I also had the mold symptoms that I was chalking up to stress symptoms. And so I wasn't able to eat. I was eating maybe 800 calories a day while nursing a 3-year-old kiddo and growing a baby and really stressed. And praise God, we're very extreme with our health. And so the food I was eating, every single bite was nutritive. I was drinking like, half a gallon of raw milk plus with egg yolks and fish and things like that. But it was interesting to see the difference in my placenta from my first with Hollis. I had a huge placenta, and I don't know what this means. Maybe you know more what it means. But with Wilder, I had this little small placenta, and I'm like,
Mm.
maybe that's why he came early. He like couldn't fit in there anymore, and it was still very healthy looking. And I know a lot of times as moms we might have like guilt around like, oh my gosh, my whole pregnancy I was in this moldy, stressful environment. My baby's going to be harmed. But they're really safe in there. And even though things can pass through the placental barrier and things like that, he was safe in there. And he was born, he has 10 toes, 10 fingers, eyesight, ears.
No extra gills or
No
anything.
extra gills, He had a rough first year of life detoxing from the mold, because we lived in it right after he was born, because we didn't know. But it was interesting to see, just how small that placenta was compared
Mm.
to my bigger placenta, but it was still very healthy. And it's always so fun
Interesting.
to see the placenta after, with kind of the tree of life in there. And
Yeah.
it's really
It's
beautiful.
amazing how the body will protect and preserve the baby, even in situations that are toxic or emotionally traumatic. Or I've just heard so many birth stories of these crazy situations happening but the baby is still like healthy. Now, mom might have to do more like mineral replenishment or detoxing or whatever, but
Yep.
it's like the body will pull from our bones. It'll pull from anywhere in our body to preserve and protect that baby. And the body is so wise to know, like, there's things that happen in labor that we just can't predict. And I usually just err on the side of, you know what, the body probably has a reason and a wisdom for doing this that I just don't understand right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's incredible to see, like you said, like I had to really be on my minerals and stuff, but what the baby was getting, if I was taking it in, the baby was getting it. And
Yeah.
so that was important. And so lots of remineralizing during, post, and now seeing he's thriving now. Like I said, it was a really rough first year of life for him.
Yeah.
He just turned 1 February 1st, and he's doing amazing. And so
That's so good.
their bodies are so amazing. There's nothing that makes you surrender more to God than having a really sick newborn that you can't give supplements to. You can't give this to. You can't do this to, because they're these little fragile beings. And so I had to trust God to care for my baby. And I trusted, things like homeopathy and different really gentle modalities that come from his creation. But I couldn't give him binders, and I couldn't give him all this stuff that I was able to give the rest of my family. And so I had to trust what's coming into my body through my breast milk. He's getting that skin on skin. All of it's going to be okay. And he was.
Wow. What a powerful story. Like you mentioned that surrender when you were fully dilated with him pushing him out and having like talk about surrender. I mean, if you're not surrendered there, like one one wrong thought, one tense moment, one push and it can cause stress or tearing like you said. And I just loved how you described that like surrender and then having to continue that surrender throughout your postpartum and your health journey with him. It's like God prepares our hearts for what we'll need, and
Yeah.
you just so beautifully partnered with that.
Yeah.
Let me pull back up my questions here. Pause for a second. Yeah, I would love to hear more about like just that, what that surrender meant to you in those moments of birth, and then like carrying that forward, because I speak a lot about surrender and how powerful and important it is, especially in labor, but even in motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For those moments of surrender, it's really a choice that you get to make. And we get to make, you hear this all the time, you get to make your choices, but you really do get to make the better choice. So we fall into bad habits. We don't fall into good habits, or we fall into a negative thought. We don't like fall into a positive thought. We have to actively choose um, the better thought, the surrender, the peace. Because when we were extremely stressed, we were in that mold. I was, mentally not there because of the brain fog and stuff from the mold, but I didn't know. I thought it was just the stress.
Mm.
Wilder being born, it was just like my husband always depicts it. It was actually hard. So we had a brand on Instagram. Wilder was born, and they offered to make me a milk ring. And when I got it, I hated it. I didn't want it because the reason is she cut up. All right, Tommy had cut up pieces of this beautiful monstera we had in our room and sent it to put in the ring. And it was after that we found out the house was moldy. So every time I would look at it, I hated it. I couldn't even look at it because I would feel that guilt of, my baby was born in this house. I should have known. Like I was telling everyone, I think this house is moldy, but I didn't trust my intuition enough to leave or to whatever the thoughts were. And so my husband's like, that ring is beautiful. Your baby was born in this sickness. Like this beautiful fresh life was born in this really hard place for us to be. Like this home that we bought, that was our dream home in our dream town with our dream community. And I had a really hard time. And he was like, this is beauty. And it was really cool that the day Wilder was born, there was this monstera, a new monstera that had just kind of started shooting out. And that was the day he was born. And so over those next few days, I watched it like open up and unfold, which was, I thought, just a really beautiful gift from God to see this plant is also in the mold. And the soil that I was in was all moldy, and it's like still a life. And so Wilder was this beautiful life, this beautiful light in this really hard time. And we didn't even know about the mold at this point. Okay. And so then, yeah, it was just like these choices. Am I going to remain like negative? Am I going to remain sick? Am I going to remain kind of controlled by fear and anxiety? Or am I going to choose, in that time in my labor, I chose surrender. Like I didn't want to tear. So I could either be scared to tear, or I could trust my body's not going to tear. It has this elasticity for a reason, and I need to relax my nervous system and bring in the breath work, that I've been practicing, and bring in these affirmations that I've been reading and having my friends write, and my husband's reading the affirmations to me. And that created that softness with not even a micro tear, for this birth.
Wow.
And then, like Wilder's born, and 1 week later we run the test for the mold. And because it's almost like having him kind of gave me like some mental clarity, I guess. I don't know, even though I had mom brain. Maybe that's why I had mom brain that was hyper focused. So I ran that test. A week later, found the mold, and we evacuated our home. I was 3 or 4 weeks postpartum. And
Wow.
so it was all these moments of surrender, 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 because sometimes you just don't have control. And in that moment, we didn't have control, and we up and left our home. And my baby was sick, and my toddler was sick, and my husband was sick, and I was sick. And yeah, but we get to choose. There's always a still knowing, even if people have kind of lost their sense of their intuition, it's always there. You just have to start training yourself to listen to it again.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have to be bold enough to condition those essentially around you. I have a strong intuition. I know what is right for my family, for my child, for my health, for this. You have to trust me. And I remember telling my husband, we have a very, very close, open relationship in the sense of like communication. But I said, I understand that you might not think our home is like harming us because you don't fully understand mold, but me and the boys are leaving, and I hope you come with us. I knew he would come with us, or else I wouldn't have said that. But he did, and we left. Okay, and so it was just like this big opening and expansion and surrender for all of our family, and that was all like from the birth of Wilder, which was really beautiful. And he is so fun. He just started walking last month, and just such a joy, such a light, and
Wow.
absolutely wild as we got for naming him Wilder. So,
And no doubt very resilient after going through all of
oh,
that.
so
Wow.
resilient. Mm-hmm.
I just so appreciate what you're saying, because it's absolutely true that like in every moment we have a choice to make. Are we going to focus on this thing that's harming us or hurting us, or fall into victim, or get scared and tense up? Or are we going to open and surrender and let go and trust? And those moments are literally what produce, like you mentioned, softness in your body. Like you chose softness versus tension. And sometimes it's so subtle, we don't even realize how our nervous system responds to those subtle choices in our thoughts, in our attitudes, in our choosing what we're going to focus on and what we're going to play out in our mind, or what we're going to make an important thought, what we're going to create a meaning for. And those subtle choices, even in our internal thoughts, create that softness in our body or that tension in our body. And you just describing that, it's like, well, of course, like you maintained your surrender and your softness in that moment of the greatest expansion, the greatest stress and pressure physically that you experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, like, those moments where we're crowning, we are the most open we will ever be physically and spiritually.
Yep.
And there's so many parallels between the physical and the spiritual realm and labor and life, that as we go through labor, as we go through trials, as we go through hardships, and you're going through both labor and a moldy house and physical ailments and all these challenges and brain fog and trusting your intuition, like leaning into your intuition, leaning into the truth your body is speaking to you, and continuously surrendering over and over again, trusting, surrendering, opening, letting go. Like those lessons I feel like are so just universal as mothers, as women who go through labor and these processes. And I just love hearing the synchronicities of what you're sharing and the powerful truth behind them that we can really apply to almost anything we're going through in life.
Yeah.
And how has that molded you and shaped you, even as a mother now, after walking through all of that, those hardships? And what have you learned and taken with you?
Yeah, I love that question. It was fascinating because so we were in Coeur d'Alene, that was like where we were living, where our house was, and we developed this incredible relationship with these friends there. And they threw me a baby shower, like a blessing way, and all of them. So a little backstory, I used to did not want children, did not want a husband, just wanted to be a lawyer, just do my own thing, I
Really?
was
I can't picture you as a lawyer at all.
I know. I was raised around dysfunction, and I was
Yeah.
raised around divorce, and I was raised around cheating, and I was raised around just
Mm,
yuck. And so I
yeah.
didn't want anything to do with that. And so it was interesting at my shower, all my friends all said the same thing. And I like kind of hated it, but loved it as I'm learning to soften. They all said, Ashlee, it's been so incredible to see you soften. You are
Mm,
soft. You like all these words that I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is being told about me. Because I was always like very blunt and aggressive and to the point. And, like it was
yeah.
a brick house that I created around myself of like, I will demand your respect and I will demand your attention or whatever.
Yeah,
And so
that masculine shell we build around
very
ourselves
masculine.
when we
Yep.
feel unsafe.
Yep. So very masculine shell around me is just starting to not come down. I'm starting to take down, like skeptically, because I'm still a little, but all my friends are like, you are softening, seeing the way you parent your child, see the way you're surrendering to your husband, seeing the way you surrender to God, all of these things. And so they all were like, I know you're not going to want to hear this kind of thing, but it was really cool to see what motherhood does to us. There's not like a more feminine, beautiful thing. And in the world we live in now, and everyone's like, oh, feminism and masculine or whatever. And it's not about that. It's like, this is our role. And whatever, if you work and have children or whatever, but it is the most feminine, beautiful, soft thing. And it's okay to be soft. And so that softness was translated literal, like softness in my perineum and softness in my face. I remember so many times when you're laboring, there are so many opportunities for fear and doubt and anxiety to come in, especially in the world we live in now, especially with me so I have 40,000 followers on Instagram. If there's a horror story about labor, I've heard it because for some reason, everyone feels the need to tell me they're horrible horror stories. And so if there was like something that I could tell a mom to do, as soon as you find out you're pregnant, get off of social media.
Like, or unfollow anyone that's not speaking positively to you.
Because then you're hearing, yes, things happen, but you're hearing every single one of them that happen, and you start to adopt that. And so with the anxiety that I had from the mold and the rooster, the thoughts in my mind were horrific. Like, I wasn't in this peaceful, blissed out pregnancy state. I thought the worst possible things about anything. I would just be laying in my bed and I would be like, I'm pregnant and my little 2-year-old is here and somehow a car is going to crash into my house and kill me. Like, just the most like irrational anxiety, fear driven thoughts because of how dysregulated I was. And I had to, like, in those moments when that thought comes in, it might not be as intense as that. That's like an exact example of what I had. You can either entertain that and keep like feeding in, oh, and then this is going to happen. Then I'm going to be at the hospital. And then, whatever. Or
spiral.
No, that's not going to happen. And so I had to consciously do that 50, 60 times a day. I'm not kidding. I would be in the kitchen cutting dinner, onions. And I'm like, I'm going to drop the knife on my baby. And he was like literally outside. He's not even in the kitchen with me. And so all those thoughts, the fear, that anxiety that come in, you have to train yourself to no, you're not welcome here. No, you're not welcome here. I have peace. I have abundance.
Yes.
I have health. I have vitality, whatever you need. And so as my friends are telling me, you're softening, and that opens the door, and then there's abundance and there's peace and there's vitality. And so in that room, in my room, even though like I was suspicious of mold and I was very anxious, I was like, this is going to be beautiful and this is going to be amazing. And any thought that would creep in, or I'd start remembering a story that someone told me on Instagram, I'm like, no, I'm not going to tear. And that's what happens. Your subconscious is so powerful. If people haven't read The Power of the Subconscious Mind book, that book is incredible. And so I just was priming my subconscious. I was putting stuff around my house that I'd see all the time. Like, I walk around my home with my baby and we're healthy. And like, in the future, this is what's happening. My body had no tears in labor. I had a beautiful postpartum. I'm eating again and I'm loving the food I'm eating, like all these things. And so all of that, to answer with the surrender, when you surrender, all of that abundance is able to flow in, because if you have your like brick wall around you, nothing can get in, good or bad.
Right. And that's so true. And what you're describing is like you priming yourself. It's like women don't realize that you're priming yourself either for fear and faith. And by listening to all of these horror stories, by opening your soul to all these possibilities of what could go wrong, and not subconsciously carrying those around, like you're priming yourself for fear in motherhood. You're priming yourself for fear or calamity in childbirth, because we just don't even realize we are being conditioned. And if you're not purposefully conditioning and priming yourself toward peace and joy and faith, you're going to be programmed by fear just because that's what our society is filled with when it comes to childbirth. Like it or not, we live in a culture of fear, especially when you're pregnant and everyone wants to share those stories with you. So I just
Mhm.
so appreciate the fact that you're living in an environment, even physically, that is like toxic, and yet you're priming your mind and your soul for peace. You're
Yeah.
priming yourself for softness. And that those acts, those simple acts, have so much power in our pregnancies and our lives, because we don't realize that those intentions and that work bears so much fruit when
Yeah.
you get to labor. And here you are in these moments of surrender. No doubt, like all that priming, that work manifested, that created that softness in your body, that joy and that peace, and you were able to surrender in moments that were no doubt super intense.
And I want people to know, like, you can flip this switch a day before your labor. So if you're someone who's, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to wait till the next baby, and like, no, I checked myself in the ER twice during this pregnancy because I thought I was miscarrying. Like, I was so
Wow.
driven by fear. I literally texted my friend Jess. She's an incredible birth worker, free birther, wild birther. And I'm like, I'm going to the ER because I need them to tell me nothing's wrong with me. Even though I know nothing's wrong with me, I was so driven by fear. I needed this authority that I don't even trust to say, you're fine, sweetheart, go home. And that's what I did. And it was because I was bleeding. And this is all now, later it's associated to the mold and things like that. But I was just like so certain. And I was creating a reality of disaster because your subconscious will bring into fruition what you feed it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it's like your conscious mind is the captain of a boat. Your subconscious mind is the row people underneath. They're just doing what the captain tells them to do. And so if the captain's like, yeah, we're good, and really you're about to crash into a rock, but the captain doesn't tell you, the subconscious is going to keep going, keep going. So I was priming myself for these emergencies, for this disaster, for this stuff. And I'm like, this has to stop. And I started feeding myself life. I started feeding myself scripture and feeding myself. I asked my friends, hey, will you text me and will you tell me that I'm beautiful and that I'm safe and that my baby, like things that are hard for, this
Mm,
masculine shell woman to do. And
mm.
that's just what happened. And it was beautiful and amazing and short, like I said, I went into labor, I think at like 5 and the baby was born at 8. Like it was beautiful.
Wow. But you intentionally made that choice to shift out of it, and you asked for help, which is
Yes.
something that's so hard for women to do, especially when we're in our masculine. It's like, no,
Mhm.
I could do it. I can push through. I'm strong enough. I can do this on my own. And I speak from experience, because when I get stressed, I get into that zone too. I get into like,
Yes.
okay, push through, make it happen. But the act of even asking for help softens us. It makes us vulnerable.
Yep.
And like, so powerful. I love everything about this. Even what you were saying in the postpartum, where you're like, you're having these intrusive thoughts, um, and you're catching yourself. What would you say to mothers, to women who struggle with, whether they, we have all these labels for these things: anxiety, postpartum depression, intrusive thoughts. Like, there's so much happening now in the mental health space with just pregnancy, mothers, labor and delivery. Like, the
Mhm.
ACOG has recently come out and said that like maternal health is the number one cause of death among postpartum women. So it's a massive issue. It's not hemorrhage. It's not medical things. It's
Mhm.
actually maternal mental
Mhm.
health related incidents. And
Wow.
so obviously this is major right now. And what you're speaking on is so applicable to like the power we have to make a shift. Like, to hear someone that was under so much stress mentally and physically in pregnancy and in the postpartum, like, to be able to still say like, no, I can make a different choice. I can choose to
Mhm.
open. I can choose a different path here. What would you
Wow.
say to women who are like, I just don't know what to do, or I'm afraid that like I'm going to bring to fruit what I'm afraid of? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So something that Jess, the same friend of mine, I think her Instagram is like badass birthkeeper or something. She's amazing. She texted me something and said, hey Ash, I feel like you need to know anxiety is the quick, fast repeating thoughts that don't make sense. You're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna get hit by a car, you're gonna like very fast, it just has this frequency, this energy that's very like aggressive. She said your
Urgent.
intuition, Yeah. She said, your intuition is still and it's calm. And so anytime, because what started happening to me is I started mixing up anxiety and intuition. I couldn't really differentiate the two anymore because of how stressed I was. And that's when she told me that. And that helped me tremendously. So when a thought would come in, and then I'd be able to notice it and grab hold of it. And 1 second, no, that's anxiety. Get out. Or if it was, okay, I'm bleeding. This is actually something to be aware of. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. I'm in Hawaii, like trying to get out of the mold. I'm not near a good hospital. Like that's something to be aware of. But then what are the thoughts that followed? You're going to die. You're going to this. You're going to, no, we live in the 21st century. We have incredible medical care if needed. I'm not going to die. My baby's not going to die. Let's just calm down. Maybe I'll sit down for the day. Maybe I overdid it. And it ended up that I had extravascular cervix. So I would, have that bleeding. And so remember that the fast-paced, rapid, aggressive, intrusive, that's anxiety. And that still, small, quiet, almost like it's not quiet like whispering. It's just kind of like gentle and it's grounded. That's your intuition. And that's what you need to listen to. And so later on when, I'd want to go to the ER again, Jess is like, what is that groundedness thing? And I'm like, I just need to stay home and I need to drink some tea and I need to be calm or whatever. And so remember that. And then I would also say there is so much power, whether it's placebo or not, in creating an environment that is going to calm you down. So what I mean when I say placebo is that some people say, oh, the only reason that, this aromatherapy or this whatever worked is because you like wanted it to. Great. If placebo is going to help you to get into a calm state, get yourself some kind of ritual in order that that you can calm down every day with. Okay. So if you need to get some chamomile and some rose like hydrosol and spray that. These are things that I would do because I had to have physical sensory things to calm me down because of how out of control I was of my emotion, of my nervous system, things like that. I was getting nervous system chiropractic work. I was getting massages. I was doing all these external inputs to try to gently help me, but I still had to, get the chamomile and the rose hydrosol and spray it on myself and rub my baby and talk to my baby and create space and burn a candle and stuff that people are like, oh, that's silly. I physically had to do those things because I needed to have a tangible, physical feeling, smell, sensory experience to bring calm to myself. And we did a lot of listening to like specific frequencies, and we can drop those in the show notes. I can't remember the specific frequency that I would listen to, but it brings your nervous system down within seconds, like within 4 seconds of listening to. And this is a very calming, grounded, like the same frequency, the same hertz that's coming off of like hearing leaves rustle outside and hearing birds and the crashing of the waves, like these really calm things. I had to employ these external sensory things to help me because I couldn't do it on my own. And that was very hard for me because I've always been a person that's like, oh, if you have mental health, anxiety, depression, get over it. Like take control of yourself, get over it. Like I've always was that way. And then after seeing this, I was like, holy cow, like it really is like an out of control feeling. And so don't feel ashamed to bring things in or to say, you know what, kids, like I couldn't have TVs on. I couldn't have music on. I couldn't have anything. I could not have any like jolting sound or anything. It would just overwhelm my nervous system. And a lot of women, a lot of my clients, a lot of your followers, a lot of your listeners, they're in that place because we are in a go, go, go 24/7. If there's not like physical noise, we have our Wi-Fi plugged in at night, which literally creates noise. If there's not our Wi-Fi plugged in at night, we have, you can hear your neighbors screaming, or you can hear like they're doing road work, or there's traffic, like there's so much noise. And so I had to create this just like sanctuary everywhere I went. Literally in our car, we have on the frequencies. When we're driving, we have on the frequencies. Our families thought we were crazy because my husband dealt with it too. But we had to. We had to control. We had to control our space in that time to get us down. And what we were talking about earlier was that kind of lingered. So a year, I was still dealing with it. It was less, but I was still dealing with it even about 8 months, 10 months postpartum. And then the patches I was telling you about, within 7 days of putting that one on the Aeon, my nervous system regulated. And then I dove into the studies on it. And so that was like the final press for me. Obviously, I'm doing all the minerals. If people know me, I'm not just some like random person that's not doing things to take care of my health. Like I'm taking 5,000 milligrams of potassium a day, and I'm eating 100% organic, and I'm, I don't have Wi-Fi, and my clothes are organic, and my bed's organic, and there's no like external stimulants like smells or chemicals, or like I'm living in the woods, like, and I still couldn't get a grip on this debilitating anxiety that I had never experienced before.
That's so powerful. I love that you found what works for you. And even what you're describing with like the sensory stuff, I can hear people like in the back of their mind, like, oh, well, that's just, woo woo, or that's just, that's superstitious. But it's like, there's actually scientific evidence that shows like when we employ our physical senses like that, you're actually grounding yourself in the present moment. And anxiety, all anxiety is like being obsessed and preoccupied with the past or the future.
Yes.
We're either worried about something that's going to happen or that we have to do and obsessing over that, or we're replaying what's happened in the past. But the present moment is where your peace is grounded, and connecting to your five senses is the simplest way, especially for us women who are so sensory and so intuitive, to actually like ground our feet on the earth or hear sounds or taste or touch things. Like I had a coach once tell me, because I was struggling with anxiety in my life, she's like, I want you to spend the first like 10 minutes of your day like pausing and actually practicing with each sense, like getting in tune with your five senses in just, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, that's really good advice. And as I'm hearing you explain like your rituals, I'm like, yeah, you're just employing your five senses in a way that feels nourishing to you and to your nervous system.
Exactly. Instead of like, I would be like, this is your head. Like it seems like
so basic and elementary. Yeah.
And I would literally like all the way down to my toes. And that's how I'd go to sleep at night. All right, you're resting toes like you do to your kids. I mean, it's okay to do that. And exactly, that's exactly what I was doing, is I was kind of creating a ritual out of noticing my five senses.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, it was the flicker of the candle is my eyesight, and the smells and the touch of, whatever I was touching.
I think there's also something to be said for not only the five senses and just grounding ourselves in that present moment, because the brain wants to overanalyze the anxious thought, right? We're thinking of all the things that could go wrong. But when we're present, we're telling our brain, no, you're safe. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between something you're imagining, some imagined worst case scenario, and real life. And so putting yourself back in the present through the senses as actually teaching your brain and your nervous system that, no, you're actually safe. This thing you're imagining is not real. Like you're not really being chased by a bear. You're not really going to drop the knife on your baby. That's the anxiety, but it's not reality because the brain doesn't distinguish. I think another thing I just want to mention that you brought up, but especially in the postpartum with postpartum moms, is there's such a spiritual dynamic to this as well. And I remember seeing so many mothers struggle with this. I mean, we still do, obviously. And I think it's probably only getting worse with postpartum mental health, mood disorders, depression, all of these things. And there's the anxiety, there's the physical stress, there's the lack of support from others. And I feel like there's also this, tell me what I'm curious your views on this, but there's like this spiritual battlefield happening where for those who are, have a spiritual beliefs, discernment, if you're religious of any kind, I saw so much of this happening as like an attack from the enemy, where I'm like, the devil knows when women are their most vulnerable, especially in the postpartum phase of motherhood where your hormones are depleted and you're rebuilding. And I feel like he tries to kick women when they're down in the form of these intrusive thoughts, these anxieties, these voices. Like the very definition of an intrusive thought is a voice that's not your own. But yet we get ashamed and guilty thinking these things as if they're our own thoughts. Like, no, there are spiritual forces. There are spiritual like entities, beings, demons, whatever, like whispering to us. And we like to we can label them intrusive thoughts, but even the mental health industry like recognizes they're not your thoughts. Like, hello, there's a spiritual battle going on. And the devil is like doesn't want you in your power, doesn't want you in your peace, wants to literally bring like death and anxiety and depression to new moms. And I think also recognizing the intense spiritual battle that is motherhood, it can help women also to just know like, okay, this isn't me. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We are very rooted in Christ as well. And so it's very interesting. I was raised in a cult. I'm not going to talk about that right now. And so it's interesting as I've kind of like relearned a true faith, who Jesus is, all of that. And so, you know, I'm not like laying on my bed like, God, please help me. Like, I'm helpless, whatever. I'm like, Lord, show me what I need to know. Like, I feel like he prompts us and gives us things. He doesn't just like, he does sometimes just rescue us. But for me, he shows me things. He guides me to people. He guides me to, you know, a research paper that tells me a lot about whatever. So as I'm, you know, just helpless, truly, like, I don't know what to do. God, please. And that's when he's like, rub your fingers together. Like, and he reveals these things to me. Get some smells. Tommy's like, you want me to burn a candle? You hate candles. I'm like, get a candle, beeswax candle, just light it and put on some hurts. He's like, I thought you don't want any noise. I'm like, this is what God is telling me to do. He's bringing me back to my senses. You know, when people say, are you out of your senses?
Yeah.
Get back to your senses, because I love what you said. The subconscious, I'm so serious when I say people have to read that, The Power of the Subconscious Mind book.
We'll link it.
The subconscious perceives real whatever you feed it.
Yes.
So anything, if you are creating this fake reality of death, destruction, that's real. That is currently what's happening. When you relive a situation, when you talk with someone, then you're like, I should have said this and I should have said that. Da, 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 da. Like your brain and your body literally think that is what's going on. That's why when you think of, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to elicit this response in people. But if you say something, people will literally begin to sweat, or they'll begin to like have a fast heartbeat, because their body is perceiving that as true, as what is in that moment. And when you were talking about the enemy, the thoughts that are whispered in our ears, that's like the biggest crime to me. And we adopt it. Like when you said we adopt it as our own, we hear these intrusive thoughts come in. And since we're not able to differentiate the enemy's voice versus our own voice, we grab to it. And people say things like, I'm having horrible thoughts. Like I want to, you know, like kill my baby, or I want to, like, people, like literally women have these thoughts. And I'm like, that is not your thought in Jesus' name.
Yes, don't own that. Yeah.
That is not your thought. When you take that thought and then you, oh my gosh, this is my thought. This is me. That is when it like digs in deeper, 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 deeper. Yeah. And that's when, like you're saying, the number one cause of death is like maternal mental illness. So you have to pluck that out. And that is not my thought. And I don't know why you keep coming back and revisiting, but that's not my thought. And you get to say, no, that is not my thought. That is not what I do. And you need to, in the Bible, it says, meditate on what is good, what is pure, what is true. This Power of the Subconscious Mind book literally takes these scriptures that all Christians know and we all say, and it's like, no, this is much more than you could think, much more than we've been taught in church and Bible study and Bible class and Sunday school. God is literally telling us to meditate on and surround ourselves in what is pure and true and light and joy, because that is what we become. It's not about like, oh, just be a good person. And no, like your subconscious mind literally becomes that. It is so important. Like as much as even just shifts in, oh, my kid is too much. Oh, no. Like, we're not going to say that anymore. My kid is filled with so much energy and I love it. My kid is filled with so much energy. I need to let him go outside, instead of my kid is too much. I can't handle it. Or this pain is too much. I can't handle it. Wow, this is quite a powerful sensation. What can I do to aid me through this? Maybe I can breathe. Maybe I can ask someone for help. Maybe there's an herb I can take. Maybe there's whatever. It's all in the perspective, literally. Like in my birth, I could have perceived that as, this is horrible pain. Somebody help me. I'm going to rip open. I would have torn. I would have had to get stitches. But I didn't. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is wow, what I'm created for. And like you said, Satan attacks us when we're vulnerable. And you were saying earlier, when we are crowning, that is as vulnerable as we get. And that is
Yeah.
when you're going to be attacked. And that is when you get to take captive the thoughts, the words, everything, and either throw them out
Yes.
or let them feed you. That is so
Yes.
important. That is so important. Like,
You're
going
like
into
preaching everything I put in my, like, all the concepts, the foundation of the what I teach in my course is like these principles of like you get to design your reality, you get to make a better choice, you get to choose fear or faith. And when you
mm,
do, your body will play that out, like to the point of having ecstasy and no pain in labor. And you did
yes,
that. Like you
yep,
literally conditioned your mind to like not feel pain, to open and surrender and soften. And I say this all the time, like women have no idea how powerful you are.
yeah.
So I just love this conversation. I didn't even expect it to go the direction it
I
went,
didn't
but
either. It's
I,
awesome.
I love it so much. I feel like there's women listening right now just because we are running out of time and I want to bring this to a landing, but I feel like there's women listening who are like, okay, this is making sense, but they still feel so stuck in
Mhm.
whatever that bad situation is, this horrible maybe problem in their life or anxiety in their hearts. Would you just speak like a prayer or a declaration over them that they can attach their faith to for those who
Mm,
feel like they're too weak to come up with the right words themselves?
yeah. Yeah. The power of the words and the power of affirmation and a lot of things that are, it's really interesting. If you think of the enemy, what would he want to do if he were trying to like twist something? So in the Christian world, like affirmations, manifesting have been made to that's bad. That's of the enemy. I'm like, excuse me? Like that's the enemy twisting literally these
Right.
specific affirmations in scripture and word. And so um first some statements that I say to myself to prime my subconscious, and literally I do this right in the morning when I wake up, and I do this right as I'm falling asleep, and I literally will just chant it essentially as I'm going to sleep is I have power, I am healthy, whatever statement you need. I have power, I am healthy, my body is supported, I'm bringing a healthy baby into this world. And you can speak in
Mm-hmm.
present. My baby is here and
Yes.
strong, and I hold captive my thoughts. Any
Mm.
thought that is not mine is not welcome here. And so, my prayer, I'm going to literally pray for us in a minute, but it's that, like, that you would believe that. Because if you were to, like, ask the enemy, what would your number one goal, be? It would be to destroy the woman and like the family unit, I believe. And that starts with the woman, and that starts with the mother, the matriarch of the home being emotionally unstable, being not well
Yeah.
nourished, not being well fed, not knowing how to tend to her husband and her kids. And so
I'm
um
getting goosebumps.
yeah, it's like it's so much more than just nutrition and having a baby. Like there is a well thought out plan here from the enemy, and he's going after mamas, and it's horrible. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
cry, but so I have power, and you can't feel silly saying these. You might in the beginning, and that's okay. But now, literally, I get my little boy, and I get Hollis or Tommy and Wilder, and I'm like, we are powerful, we are free, we are strong. And Hollis is running around the house saying it, and he's a kid. And you have to say those things, and you have to write them everywhere, and you have to believe them. And so, whatever you need to believe is true. Number one, you have to believe that it's true. And even if you don't believe it, start saying it, and you will believe it because the subconscious
Yep.
knows what it's told.
Yep.
So I'm going to pray. So yeah, God, we give all of these mothers to you, whatever stage of life they're in, whether they're religious or not. You are the
Yeah.
creator. There is divine order. Everything happens in perfect divine order, and we get to play a role in it. We get to choose
Mm.
life, or we get to choose death. We get to choose fear, or we get to choose faith. And my prayer over every mom to be, mom that is, struggling moms, is that they would hear this and that they would hold captive their thoughts, that they would trust what you have put in every single one of us, intuition, to guide their children, their families, themselves. And I pray, God, that they would feel that spark begin to rekindle within them. Maybe they feel like it's never been there, but it was when they were little. We all had that when we were little. So Jesus, just touch their hearts, impress upon them, remind them frequently, lay scripture on those who've never even read the Bible, meditate on what is pure and true and good. Those are what we need to surround ourselves, our eyes, our hearts, our ears with. All of what we intake matters more than just food. Thoughts and
Yeah.
relationships. God, I just pray that you would remind them of the attack of the enemy, devil, Satan, I mean, whatever people believe. But there is an attack there, and all women can agree with that, God. So we just pray that in your name, and we pray that that this would just truly be a gift for every woman that's listened to it. Amen.
Amen. Oh my gosh, so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pray that everyone who needed to hear that will just receive that prayer. Ashlee, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? And you also tell us a little bit about your hormone course and where they can find that if they want to learn more from your genius of what you do.
Yeah. So, as we said in the beginning, simple, no E, holistic across the board. So, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, whatever, wherever you are. And then my website is that same simple, no E, holistic.org. And Bare Naked Hormones is my course. So, that is the course that I designed after I was told I was infertile, never would have kids, Hashimoto's, PCOS, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac, I mean, you name it. I was eating 5 foods. I was not in good health. And I was doing everything right, eating organic bed, correcting my light environment. And I was still, not getting pregnant. So after 5 years, finally figured it out, learned about the minerals, learned about supporting my thyroid, my metabolism, and created Bare Naked Hormones. And so that's the course that we have a code for you guys that we'll put below. And it is the course that is the blueprint that I created for myself. And now I have several thousand students who have gone through it and get the most amazing. It's not just for women who want to get pregnant. There's women who are in menopause. There's moms who buy it for their 12-year-old daughters. There's families like dads and kids that go through it. It's just all about supporting your metabolism, your thyroid, your hormones. Simply in nature. It's about quieting the noise of the wellness world. So what can we use around us that we already have, that's already in our home, that's free, that's cost effective, that's simple. Everything is about simple. That's why I have my business name as it is. And so that's Bare Naked.
Hallelujah. There's way too much confusion in the wellness world. So I so appreciate that.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Definitely check out her course. I myself am going to be going through it and talking more with her about this whole topic because I love it. And this is just such a wealth of information. Click that link. We'll have a discount code for you down there. Make sure you follow her on Instagram. And Ashlee, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. This has been just, what an incredible conversation. And we just bless you guys. We'll see you next week.